Welcome back to 15-Minute Discourse. Today we're going right into the heart of Warhammer 40K, a universe where humanity's grip on reality is tenuous at best. We're talking about the warp, also known as warp space, a dimension so intertwined with our own that it reflects our every thought and emotion.
It's a fascinating concept, isn't it? To imagine a realm where fear isn't just a feeling, but like a tangible force.
Yeah.
Where anger doesn't just dissipate, it like coalesces into these monstrous entities.
Right.
That's the warp.
Wow.
A dimension of pure psychic energy, just fueled by the collective unconscious of the galaxy.
It's a bit mind-bending, to be honest.
Yeah.
So every time I get stressed out about deadlines or let out a frustrated sigh in traffic, I'm actually feeding this chaotic dimension.
In essence, yes.
Oh, wow.
Every sentient being leaves a psychic imprint in the warp. And it's not just individual emotions, though. Imagine the collective anxieties of an entire planet facing war. The shared grief of a species on the brink of extinction.
Okay.
These emotions have weight. They have presence in the warp. They can warp reality, literally.
Okay, now that's just terrifying.
Yeah.
But you mentioned entities.
Yes.
What exactly are we talking about here? Are there, like, warp whales swimming around in a sea of anxiety?
There are entities, yes, but perhaps not whales.
Okay.
The warp is home to demons.
Yeah.
Creatures of pure psychic energy that embody the darkest aspects of our nature.
Oh, wow.
They are drawn to strong emotions, feeding on them growing stronger.
Right.
And they can influence the material world, whispering temptations, inciting violence, spreading disease.
So it's not just a passive reflection, then. The warp can actively reach out and mess with us.
Precisely.
Okay.
And that's where things get really interesting.
Right.
We have to talk about the Chaos Gods.
Okay.
These are beings of immense power born from the collective unconscious of the galaxy.
Right.
They embody the most fundamental aspects of sentient existence: war, decay, change, and even pleasure.
Hold on, a god of pleasure. That doesn't sound so bad. Maybe we could all use a little more of that, right?
It's the seductive nature of Slaanesh,
Okay.
the youngest of the Chaos Gods.
Right.
What might seem appealing on the surface, the pursuit of pleasure, the fulfillment of every desire, quickly becomes a trap. Slaanesh's domain is a realm of excess, where sensation is amplified to the point of pain, where indulgence becomes obsession.
Okay, so maybe scratch that spot A in the warp.
Yeah.
But how do these chaos gods actually affect us? I mean, are they just sitting around in their warp castles judging our every move?
Their influence is more subtle, more pervasive. They whisper to us in our dreams, they exploit our weaknesses, they tempt us with power.
Right.
Think about it. A general consumed by the desire for victory, a scientist willing to break any ethical boundary for knowledge,
Right.
a politician driven by ambition above all else. These are the individuals susceptible to the whispers of chaos.
So it's not just about monstrous demons invading our world.
No.
It's about the insidious corruption that can take root in our own hearts and minds.
Exactly.
Right.
And one of the most fascinating and terrifying examples of this corruption is the fall of the Eldar.
Yeah.
Have you heard of them?
Vaguely.
Yeah.
They're like space elves, right? Ancient and powerful.
Yes.
But something went terribly wrong.
The Eldar were once the dominant species in the galaxy, masters of technology and psychic power.
Right.
But they grew decadent. Their civilization became obsessed with pleasure, with pushing the boundaries of experience.
Right.
And this excess had a profound effect on the warp.
Let me guess, they accidentally created a chaos god with their wild parties.
Their collective emotions, their unchecked hedonism gave birth to Slaanesh.
Wow.
The very fabric of reality tore open, creating a permanent warp rift known as the Eye of Terror.
The Eye of Terror, that sounds ominous.
It is. It's a region of space where the laws of physics break down, where demons roam freely, and where the influence of chaos is at its strongest.
Right.
It's a constant threat to the Imperium of man, a reminder of the price of unchecked desire.
Okay, we're officially in nightmare territory now.
Yeah.
But you mentioned the Imperium.
Yes.
They're humanity's last bastion in this chaotic universe, right?
Yeah.
Surely they have some ways to fight back against all of this.
The Imperium is vast, powerful, but constantly at war.
Right.
Both within and without. They have the Inquisition, a secretive organization dedicated to rooting out heresy and chaos corruption. They have the Space Marines, genetically enhanced warriors who are humanity's first line of defense against the horrors of the warp.
Right.
But even with all their might, the Imperium is constantly struggling to hold back the tide of chaos.
It sounds like a pretty bleak situation.
It can be.
But before we delve deeper into the Imperium struggle, I want to understand more about these chaos gods. We've talked about Slaanesh, but what about the others? What kind of delightful horrors do they bring to the table?
Well, we have Khorne the Blood God. He's the embodiment of war, rage, and bloodshed.
Right.
His followers are berserkers driven by a primal urge to kill and conquer. They revel in the heat of battle, the clash of steel, the spilling of blood.
Sounds like a delightful bunch. And I'm guessing their corner of the warp is just a lovely little picnic spot, right?
Khorne's domain is a realm of eternal conflict, a hellscape of jagged mountains and rivers of blood. It's a reflection of his essence. Pure, unadulterated rage.
I think I'll pass on that vacation destination. So we've got the god of war and the god of, well, let's call it extreme spa treatments.
Right.
Who else is vying for our souls?
We also have Nurgle, the Lord of Decay. He represents disease, rot, and despair, but also, strangely enough, resilience and rebirth.
Wait, resilience and rebirth.
Yeah.
From a god of disease. That's an interesting combination.
It is, isn't it? Nurgle sees decay as a natural part of the cycle of life, even a twisted form of beauty.
His followers are often plague-ridden, their bodies grotesquely mutated, yet they embrace their afflictions with a disturbing kind of joy.
Okay, so we've got rage excess and now body positivity taken to the extreme.
I'm starting to sense a theme here. What's the last one just to round out our cosmic bingo card of existential dread?
Finally, we have Tzeentch, the Changer of Ways.
Okay.
He's the god of change, ambition, sorcery, and manipulation.
Right.
Think of him as the ultimate puppet master, always scheming, always weaving intricate plots that span centuries.
Oh, wow.
His followers are sorcerers, scholars, and those driven by a relentless thirst for knowledge and power.
So basically, if you meet someone who's way too into riddles and cryptic prophecies, steer clear.
That's probably sound advice.
Okay.
Tzeentch's realm is a constantly shifting labyrinth reflecting his ever-changing nature.
Right.
It's a place where reality is fluid, where knowledge is power, and where the pursuit of that power can drive you to madness.
We've talked a lot about the Eye of Terror. But are there other places in the galaxy where the warp bleeds into the material realm?
Oh, absolutely. The Eye of Terror is the most infamous.
Right.
But there are other warp rifts and storms scattered throughout the galaxy. The Maelstrom, for example, is a massive warp storm near the galactic core.
Right.
Second only to the Eye of Terror in its chaotic energy.
Right.
It's a haven for pirates, renegades, and chaos warbands.
So it's like the Wild West of the warp where only the most ruthless survive.
A fitting analogy.
Right.
And then there's the Screaming Vortex, another major warp storm known for its incredibly potent psychic energies.
Right.
It's a breeding ground for psychers,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also incredibly dangerous. The barriers between the warp and reality are thin there.
Right.
And even the strongest minds can be shattered by the sheer intensity of the psychic energy.
Speaking of intense psychic energy, didn't something major happen in the galaxy relatively recently? I'm talking about the Great Rift, the Cicatrix Maledictum.
Yes.
How does that fit into all of this warp storm talk?
The Great Rift is a colossal tear in reality that has split the Imperium in half.
Right.
It's spewing forth unimaginable amounts of warp energy, making warp travel even more dangerous and unpredictable.
Okay.
The Astronomicon, the psychic beacon that guides ships through the warp, is dimmed, leaving many sectors of the Imperium isolated and vulnerable.
Wow, that's catastrophic.
It is.
It sounds like the Imperium is facing an existential threat.
They are.
But, we've talked a lot about the dangers of the warp and chaos.
Yes.
But are there any benefits besides the faster-than-light travel thing?
Right.
Which, let's face it, sounds more like a punishment than a perk at this point.
The warp is a source of immense power, and that power can be harnessed, though, always at great risk. Psychers draw their abilities from the warp, channeling its raw energy to manipulate reality.
Uh-huh.
But that connection is a double-edged sword. They are constantly bombarded by the whispers of demons, their minds vulnerable to possession.
So it's like a cosmic power outlet with faulty wiring that could fry you at any moment.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. But even with the risks, the Imperium relies heavily on psychers. They are essential for communication, navigation, and even warfare.
We've focused a lot on humanity's experience with the warp.
Yeah.
But what about other races? Do they have their own unique interactions with this chaotic dimension?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The warp is a reflection of all sentient life.
Right.
So it stands to reason that other races would have their own ways of interacting with it.
Right.
Take the orcs, for example.
Okay.
They're a race of savage, warlike creatures.
Yeah.
And their collective psychic energy manifests as a kind of crude, brutal form of chaos.
Right.
They don't have distinct chaos gods like humanity,
Right.
but their liberage energy, the primal force that drives their conquests,
Right.
is a chaotic force to be reckoned with.
So it's like a simplified, more primal version of chaos. No fancy rituals or philosophical debates, just pure, unadulterated war age.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then you have the Eldar, who, as we discussed, have a particularly intimate relationship with Slaanesh. They are still reeling from the fallout of their fall, constantly trying to navigate the dangers of the warp while avoiding the clutches of their own creation.
This is all incredibly fascinating.
It is.
But I have to admit, it's a lot to process.
Yeah.
The warp seems to be this ever-present threat, this reflection of our own darkest impulses. Is there any hope for the galaxy? Or are we all just doomed to be swept away by the tides of chaos?
That's a question that has haunted philosophers and strategists for millennia.
Right.
The warp is a chaotic and unpredictable force,
Yeah.
and the future is always uncertain.
Right.
But even in the darkest corners of the galaxy, there are always those who fight back, who refuse to give in to despair.
So you're saying there's still hope, even in the face of such overwhelming darkness?
Hope is a powerful weapon, perhaps the most powerful weapon we have. The fight against chaos is ultimately a fight against our own inner demons.
Uh-huh.
A struggle to choose order over anarchy, hope over despair. And that's a fight worth fighting, no matter the odds.
Before we wrap up our deep dive,
Yeah.
I want to delve a bit deeper into the origins of chaos.
Okay.
Where did these chaos gods come from? Were they always these monstrous beings?
It's a question that has intrigued scholars and mystics for centuries. The truth, as with most things concerning the warp, is shrouded in mystery and speculation. But what's fascinating is that the story of chaos isn't just about cosmic horrors and galactic battles. It's a warped reflection of our own history, our own myths. Think about the ancient creation myths we find across human cultures, stories of a formless void of primordial beings who emerge from chaos to shape the world.
Right.
The chaos gods, in a way, are a twisted echo of these archetypes.
So you're saying there's more to these chaos gods than just being embodiments of war, plague, and excess?
Yeah.
That they weren't always these monstrous entities we know today?
Exactly. They
Okay.
were born from the collective unconscious of sentient beings.
Right.
And as those beings evolved, so did the chaos gods.
Right.
Imagine a time before the rise of civilizations when humanity lived in small tribes constantly struggling for survival. Those emotions, fear, aggression,
Yeah.
the desperate need to change our circumstances, those were the seeds that gave rise to the chaos gods.
That's a chilling thought, that our primal instincts, the very things that helped us survive, also gave birth to these cosmic horrors.
Right.
But if the chaos gods are so powerful, why haven't they already won? What's stopping them from just taking over the galaxy?
That's the paradox of chaos. It's a force of entropy, of constant change and destruction. But within that destruction, there's also creation rebirth possibility. The chaos gods are constantly vying for dominance.
Their ambitions clashing,
Yeah.
their very natures preventing them from achieving total control. They are like sharks in a feeding frenzy, tearing each other apart as much as they are attacking their prey.
So their own infighting is keeping them in check. They're basically their own worst enemies.
In a way, yes.
That's almost reassuring in a twisted sort of way.
Right.
But what about the future? Are there any prophecies that hint at what's to come for the galaxy?
Prophecies are tricky things, especially when dealing with the warp.
Right.
But the Eldar, with their deep connection to the psychic realm,
Yeah.
have a few chilling predictions.
Okay.
They believe their fall was just a prelude to an even greater catastrophe, a final unraveling of reality itself.
Right.
But even in their prophecies, there are glimmers of hope, hints of a chosen one who will rise to challenge the chaos gods and restore balance to the galaxy.
Chosen one.
Right.
I do love a good prophecy.
But what does all of this mean for the individual? What does it mean to be corrupted by chaos? Is it a sudden dramatic transformation? Or is it a slow, insidious process?
The path to corruption is rarely straightforward.
Right.
It's often a gradual descent, a series of compromises,
Okay.
a slow erosion of one's morals and beliefs.
Okay.
Think of the soldier driven by rage and hatred who finds himself drawn to the promises of Khorne, Or the scholar obsessed with forbidden knowledge who falls prey to Tzeentch's whispers.
It-
Chaos doesn't force itself upon us.
Right.
It seduces, it tempts,
Yeah.
it offers a twisted reflection of our desires.
So the fight against chaos is as much an internal battle as an external one. It's about choosing hope over despair, order over anarchy, even when the darkness seems overwhelming. And on that note, we'll have to wrap up this deep dive into the Warp and Chaos listeners. I hope you found this exploration as fascinating and terrifying as I have. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe to 15-Minute Discourse for more explorations of the fascinating and often terrifying corners of science fiction, fantasy, and history. Until next time, stay curious.